shaking, y'all. It is episode 70, the Golden Mike Live. I got a quick question for you. Where is my wife and what have you done with her? Where's my wife and what have you done with her? John, where's my wife? What have you done with her? That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're also going to be talking about some other things. That's a book that Jeanne Andrus has written for us. 4 other books she's written. All 5 are bestsellers. I Just Want to Be Me Again. Chill Out. Lighten Up. Think Again. And the final one is, Where is my wife and what have you done with her? I love it. Just in case you haven't met me, my name is Marc Cordon. I am a positive psychology coach, founder of the Make Money Coaching. But more importantly, I want you to think this today. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? So that's just straight up like, did you have a good lunch? Did you get enough sleep? How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? The next thing I wanted to throw out to you is this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you're living a life of purpose? So, Jeanne, I have this question for you. When I'm asking you, are you living life, or today, are you living fully happily? And also, are you living in your full purpose? What is your answer to that?
I am supremely happy.
Supremely happy.
I have the most freaking amazing life that you could possibly imagine. And yes, I am living my purpose because my purpose is to help other women do exactly what I do, which is really, really live their purpose, live full out, and do that when they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s, because that's when it all starts to get great.
So speaking about getting great, you got a whole bunch of people who are hitting on you all of a sudden here. Ruben Lopez is giving you the eyebrows. What's up there? Jorge is from Puerto Rico. Good to see you. He is the greatest of all time. Good morning, Jorge. Now, Jeanne, it sounds like you're feeling great and you're functioning in your full purpose. For those of you who are watching the show, again, Mercury's in retrograde and we're still pushing through and getting this damn show done. For you, if you're feeling great and you're living in your full purpose, Jeanne, I want you to put your hands up with me and make a nice little heart. I know you gotta drop your phone.
That's
She just dropped her phone for you people. Make some hearts. Make some hearts for Jeanne. She's absolutely smashing her phone up. If you're living life right now, Aaron, it is good to see you. You were just on the news yesterday, so I hope you're feeling happy and living in your full purpose. Robin giving us the heart face. Good to see you. Sophia, I've missed you, Mark. I've missed you too. Glad I can catch you today. Stick around. This one is going to be super, super cool because I want to know where my wife is and what you've done with her. Then Daniel Hillman, it is good to see you. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Jeanne. So it looks like there's a bunch of fun people up in here. Now, this is the thing. Making some hearts if you're feeling good and functioning in your full purpose, right? But also at the same time, y'all, life changes. And Jeanne probably is the biggest expert when it comes to transitions in life and then flourishing afterwards. A lot of times we think positive psychology is happiness 24/7. It's shits and giggles all the time. It's about only feeling good and like completely ignoring all the negative stuff in life. Well, that's not actually true. It's really about living the ups and the downs and the all arounds of life and getting through it. This is your hero's journey. And if you're like Jeanne, if you're like you've had days where you're like, man, I felt good. I felt good last week, but all of a sudden I'm not as happy anymore. I don't know why. Or you've had these things where you're like, I lived for 40, 50 years with a certain purpose and now it's going away. And what does my new purpose look like? It's in different places. Well, if you feel a little bit of that dissonance, your heart beats just like John and I's. Give us a thumbs up and let us know that you're alive. I see you there in the lobby section. We're going to bring you up soon if you can hear me. Give us a thumbs up. Now, this is the other piece. This is the biggest piece. I've been talking about it all week with everybody. This idea of hope and hope theory. Oh, I can't wait to see Jeanne do this. If you are hopeful about the future, if you've ever gotten to a point in your life and you've ever said, oh, it's all downhill from here. If you are hopeful about today is going to be better than tomorrow, no matter what, you're talking about optimism and hope. And that's one of the biggest predictors of success that you can imagine in your own life, that you can bring into your own life. So, Jeanne, and all of you watching, for those of you who are feeling optimistic right now, there's another button down there. I'm not going to have Jeanne do it. I'm going to have her do it with one hand. It's the wow face. And Jeanne, the wow face goes like this. They're going to hit the button. Jeanne's going to do it. The wow face. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster with you. So given all of that, they call you the menopause guru, Jeanne.
That's right.
And I've also had a menopause guru. I call her a guru. Come on the show before, drinking wine, talking about dry vag, all this stuff. It got all wild last time. I don't know if we should even bring her back, but we might. But before we get into all of that stuff, what is your story?
So my story goes like this. I was a typical corporate hack. I was a DBA, database administrator for a really big corporation. I was an Oracle consultant and I was traveling all over the place. And life got really, really strange because I wasn't home a lot and things started falling apart at home. And what I didn't realize was that at the same time things were falling apart at home, things were also falling apart in my body. They were not falling apart so much as changing because I was a middle-aged woman. I was in my late 40s and didn't really have a clue as to what was going on. So everything fell apart. I actually, the first time I wrote this story, I called it, and then the dog died, because even my dog, my very faithful, wonderful dog, was older and we lost him. And it was like my whole world fell apart. Just boom. And I broke up with my now ex and moved 1,800 miles away. I was still doing this crazy ass travel job. I was going out every week and coming home every weekend, and tons and tons and tons of stress, of course. So I got to the point where I said, I can't be this way anymore. I just really can't be this way anymore. And so I started with my journey started with getting healthy. I was overweight, I was underfit, and I needed to get healthy. So I did. And I realized that there were a lot of women my age who were in the same boat. They were not as fit as they wanted to be. They couldn't do the stuff that they did when they were younger. And so I became a personal trainer. I certified as a personal trainer through American Council on Exercise. I certified as a health coach with them. And I started to work with women. And I realized that it was more than that. I realized that they weren't telling us something. They were keeping a secret. and the secret was that everything changes when your hormones change. And your hormones change because your body's reproductive cycles are starting to shut down. But the cool thing is that there's actually a gift in this. And we don't talk about it a lot, and people don't realize it. But when we stop focusing on everybody else, when we stop focusing on our kids, when we stop focusing on our husband,
Mm,
when we stop focusing on being everything to everybody, we have an opportunity to be what I call positively selfish. And that's selfish in a positive way. We get to focus on ourselves. We get to see what we've learned over the past 40 or 50 years. We get to see who we are and how we can go forth in the world and really shine. So, a lot of women, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs who are under 40 who are doing amazing things, but they're also trying to balance kids and husbands and everything else. When we get to this next stage, we get a choice. Our bodies say, hey, concentrate on you. And we get to say, how do we want to do that? Do we want to be, uh, some people do become wonderful grandparents, and that's the center of their world. For me, it was this whole idea that I could help other women go through this transition much easier and more comfortably than I had done, and so many women have done. And I have to start with the physical. I have to say it starts by the changes that are happening in your body. And I call it a menopause journey. I call the
mhm.
whole thing a journey from the time you start this to the time it gets your body settles down. And that could be 20 years. Honestly, my first symptom came along when I was 42 and I didn't even know it. And I'm now 62 and I pretty much think everything is pretty much stabilized and I'm not going to see a lot of changes unless I start doing a whole lot of unhealthy things.
Okay.
So that's my story. My story is all about helping women look into who they were and what they wanted to do and move forward and be that
Yeah.
person.
So I wanted to ask you this. We got about half and half audience up in here right now, your folks and my folks, right? And I think the big thing is like, if my folks are thinking like, what is Cordon and the menopause guru doing right now? Well, it's actually very much more similar than you think. Um, uh, Jean's talking about helping people along a journey. And with positive psychology, I'm helping folks as they're pivoting and transitioning. It may be in their quarter life crisis or in their midlife crisis, or even when they used to be college students going through an existential crisis, their first existential crisis.
I
But
remember
I
that
want
a long time ago.
yeah, so okay, so cool. So you're talking about existential crises a long time ago. Let's go and talk about your life, your entire life journey, not only the menopause journey. So when you were little John, yes, when you were little John, like what were you thinking were going to be the major touch points in your life, and were you thinking that menopause was going to be one of those things?
Holy hell no. the, the trick is they don't even tell us it's going to happen. They just kind of let you think that there's this magic thing that happens. So one of the things I talk about is the idea that um, I would love to get every woman in her late 30s, early 40s into a classroom and do what they did to the girls back in fifth grade. And that was like a long time ago for me. But they sent all the boys out to play basketball, which I didn't like anyway because I would rather have been playing basketball. And then they show us this film and they say your body is about to change. They don't tell you that you're going to change emotionally and mentally. I was like the science nerd kid before that. And after that, you get sort of this, oh, boys, babies, biology, and biology in one of those sexual senses. And we go through this, we become more attuned and it's different for every woman, and there's some women who really sort of stay on one side and other women who just find themselves falling over into this. I'm so attracted to boys and I'm so want a baby, and it really changes who we are. So
Mm,
then we go through our 20s and 30s, and for me that was in the early 70s. No, I'm sorry, mid 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And I was going through this whole thing along with a huge women's movement in which they told us
hmm.
that
Yep.
this was all our upbringing and it wasn't what we should be doing, and we should be career women, and we should be 50, we should be thinking about how we could change the world and all of this. And here I am with a 6-month-old baby who is my entire life. And I
Mm,
really, that changed again. That oxytocin hit that we get um, just really wants to center us around these little people that are in our lives, and it does it for a very big reason, because kids can be really annoying, and if you didn't love them, you'd kill them, honestly. And so I'm like twisted and turned and pulled in two different directions. And it wasn't until I started doing my research um, that I realized that we're designed to pay attention to those babies, to be the person that those babies need us to be, because otherwise there is no human race. And that's what our biology tells us to do.
so, by what I'm hearing is biology is saying that we're moving further than the self, and in many ways, almost hardwired to go into a sort of service mode to our kin.
Our women, especially. And
Okay.
it comes back, I talk in my, I actually tell the story of my two great great ancestors who were hunter women in a hunter gatherer tribe. And okay, it's imaginary, but bear with me. So when we were in that hunter gatherer state, a woman who was pregnant was looking at 2 to 3 years before she could actually go out and hunt again. She could gather, but to be an effective hunter and chase down antelope over the course of 3 or 4 days, that was just not possible to do with a small person with you. So women had to build these communities. They had to build tribes in order to stay safe, and for humans to develop that elongated adolescence period and childhood period where they weren't fully capable. So men didn't need that. Men could go out and be single purposed and hunt down the antelope or the mastodons or whatever was out there and bring it back. But in order for them to bring it back, they had to have some emotional connection to the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we
Yep.
were designed, we evolved, as it were, to create that community, while men were designed to think more linearly and that sort of tracking space. So that's all tied to our hormones. It's not really tied to um, our physical sense. It's actually tied to our hormones. So when our hormones kick in at puberty, we get into this, we build community, we deal with each other, we attract men, we make homes. And then when we hit menopause, that retreats. And it's like waking up. It's really like
Mm-hmm.
waking up from a 20-year nap in which we were the everything to everybody. And we become more and more available to our own selves.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. You just broke the questioning round I had for you. So we're just gonna go off script. I want to say a couple things here. Um, uh, Melanie Klein, good morning to you. Good morning to you. And so just couple more people are tuning in. This is going to go into a deviation, and it's a straight deviation, and I admit it. But I am curious because as you're talking about the biology of tribes and sub tribes, right? There's this
Mhm.
idea that everyone within the tribe is given a purpose, which is why nowadays we still need to live life feeling like we need purpose, right?
Oh
It's
yeah.
because from that old school, from that old school mentality of being in a tribe. Also, at the same time, there's a lot of things that are saying that mentality of men as hunters,
Hmm.
metaphorically, and women as sort of the tribe that raised the kids is almost an archaic way of thinking nowadays. So I just want to throw out, like, what is your thoughts on that?
So here's the thing. It may be an archaic way of thinking, and we may be able to go beyond that, and most of us do to some extent. The problem is that our biology is still geared that way. Honestly, we have only been, as a society, less than 100 years. Has have we really, or just about 100 years since women have had the vote? And if you think about it, evolutionarily, that's a flash.
Mm,
In 5 generations.
yeah,
My mother grew up when she couldn't vote. So for me, it's only 2 generations. So how fast is your biology going to adapt to that? So we have to do that through a thought process. And
that's
that's
so sorry to cut you off. That is such an amazing way to think about things, because our environment is changing faster than our biology can keep up with. Our legacy, the way that we're evolving, we just can't move as fast as the environment is moving right now, and so it makes sense.
and
Yeah.
it's gotten worse. I mean, if you look at what I grew up with, I grew up without computers. I grew up with black and white TV. There was no such thing. If you wanted to go see a movie, you had to go to the movie theater or you had to wait a year until it
Mm.
came on TV, and you had to schedule your life around watching it the night it came on. So I remember being a child and waiting for The Wizard of Oz every year because they played it every year. So if you look at that now, I don't even need, if I want to watch The Wizard of Oz, I can go download it on Netflix. I could probably find an on demand place to, and it's completely changed the way
It,
we
it
deal with each other, the way I I didn't have a phone that wasn't connected to the wall until I was 35 or 40 before we had a cordless phone, and I was in my late 40s before I got a cell phone.
oh, okay. I thought, like, by cord connected to the wall, you meant charger.
Yeah, no.
So,
You know that video that's going around with the kids with the rotary dial who can't figure out how to use it?
oh, those things are awesome. Yeah, those things are awesome. I still
I
wish I
had,
had those.
that's what I grew up with. And it was before all of this technology. My mom grew up even before that. They had party lines when she was probably in her 15 or 20, in her late teens, but they didn't even have that for the most part. Um, Medicine has changed, a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, and it's really important for us to understand that our biology is not going to stay, and we're pixelating online. Uh,
Okay.
we're we're not going to be able to simply be this person that we want to be. We have to actually decide to do that.
Well, let's talk about being that person in a little bit. Melanie has some really cool insights. It's the croning. I have no idea
That
what that word means. Exactly. Is
um,
that exact?
yes, it actually is a term, and it's what I work with my my clients to become their personal crone. And crone is like this awful word in our society uh, that goes along with menopause, which is an awful word in our society. And the thing is, crone comes from crown. And it's this amazing thing that we, it's the crowning of our lives as women. It's really becoming that person who is at the apex of their life.
Mm, very interesting. Yet it has a certain stigma to it. Um,
Of course.
right. Melanie followed up with, we move away from our domestic responsibilities and move into our full wisdom. Such a
Yeah,
freedom. Okay,
yeah,
so we're feeling the vibe between you and Melanie, Jeanne.
exactly.
Okay.
So I have done, I have a speech that I give over and over again, and it starts with, what do you think of when you hear the word menopause? And most people, it's old, hag, crone, nearly dead. And
Mm-hmm.
because there's a really interesting insight from a couple of women whose name I've forgotten right now, who wrote a book about menstruation called The Flow. And it's, they say that throughout history, we have not, we have had one basic question, and that is, what's the use of a woman who can't, who doesn't have children? And so it's a scary state for us as women, but it's also a scary state for men, because all of a sudden these older women become a little bit less dependent on them, or a lot less dependent on them, and more dependent on themselves. And that terrifies the typical man from history. Um, so that's really a key to understanding how women, older women, are dealt with in our society, because we freak men out. We start to think more like they do, more linear, and we're not nearly as open to cook my dinner, clean my house, wash my clothes, and we're certainly no longer raising your children. So
Yeah.
those are things that I think we find ourselves in this place. And I saw it really clearly in the last election, where he who shall remain nameless was really
Voldemort? Trump?
Voldemort. Yeah, he who shall not be named was actually treating specific women with a great deal of contempt. And it was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting to see that from my point of view, because I could see that through this whole analogy that I've developed over how people think about each other, and how women, how the perception of women changes once they hit menopause.
Huh. That is very interesting. I have to cut you off right now because there's someone in this room that wants to come up and keeps putting he keeps writing on pieces of paper that she wants to be in the room right now. So I want to bring in Molly McCarthy, also known as Moodswing Mollie. It may have been the most ridiculous episode in the history of the
So
Golden Mike.
I saw it come up, but I never did watch it. Hey, Molly,
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How about
I'm
you?
missing you, girlfriend.
I know we need to just hang out sometime and drink some.
Hey, and let's be truthful when you're talking about menopause and guys are like worried and thinking we're old. They're just worried if our vaginas are working or not. Let's be truthful.
Look at this.
They're not worried about dinner.
Well, I didn't really. but let's go there.
We
Yes.
should. Let's be truthful.
And
Let's talk about that for a minute. So
yeah.
women, when they get older, and there are certain things that happen physically, and that's due to, but there's also something that happens because we are, um, we're starting to rethink our relationship with you as men. And we're starting to say, wait a minute, I'm just not comfortable with you being the person that you've been to. And so our relationships, honestly, for probably 10 years, I blamed myself for it. But let's let's be honest. It was at least 50-50 and probably more like 70-30 his, and it's yes, there were sexual issues, and there were sexual issues because the relationship was based on equality, it was based on old dynamic.
Okay, so you're breaking up just a little bit because we started out with the question, do your vaginas still work? But I think more along that's what's on the
Yes,
screen right
they
now. Yay!
but sometimes they may be closed for business. With certain yeah, it can get that way.
Okay, so Molly, you're sitting here in the room for a little bit. What thoughts or questions did you have coming up as you heard Jeanne telling her story?
Touch, because, she is into the health portion of her mission to get menopause and things talked about, is we really need to look at that. While a lot of our vaginas are still working, there's a lot of men that seriously, when we're going through it and they're the same age, they're going through a lot of changes in their bodies, their mind, their spirit, their soul. As they age, they go through things too. So I want her to touch on that, because menopause is just not a woman thing. They do joke about menopause, but I really truly believe that there are men out there my age that are going through things, and they have a silent passage. They have that unspoken word. So I want her to touch on that, because there's a lot of truth to that.
Great piece, great piece. Molly, don't hang up yet. I'm gonna bring you down. Did you get to hear all of that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So
am I going through menopause? Am I gonna go through it?
Yes.
Yay!
The short answer is men go through a gradual lessening of their hormones, which are testosterone and several others, actually. It's not as drastic. And what it generally does is say, guy, you are not really the same person you were. And the midlife crisis in men is a real thing, and it's partly because of this whole notion that they aren't as capable of taking down the mastodon again, going back to evolution as they once were. So that's really a key for guys, is to realize that they have something going on, and they need to think about what that means for them. So, Where is My Wife and What Have You Done with Her was written because guys are confused, and they don't know what their wives are going through, and they don't know what they're going through. So it touches on it a little, the andropause thing, but it also talks about reestablishing your relationship with with the woman that you love, and that a real key to the whole thing is this letting her know that you are more emotionally available to her and making that happen.
Very interesting. So Robin's just throwing out, which is why Viagra is so popular. But I think it's one of the things, though, right? It's not only it's not only a sexual aspect, right? But it's also a purpose aspect. Like I came into the world young, optimistic, with grandiose dreams, and I've got a hairline, and I'm not seen as much as more. I jiggle when I drink a milkshake, like those sort of things. And I could see that affecting men and women when it comes to the decline in purpose in the world, and that's just coming from a positive psychology element of things, because
Right.
we were designed to be people who live in a group, not people who live in solitary confinement. And so
Excellent.
if purpose drive goes down, what's my place in my group? So that's really interesting.
So we're dealing with a whole lot of things that are going on as we hit this time of our lives, and it's really important, I think, to take the time to not only bolster your health, and for most of the women I'm talking with, there are health issues. They don't support their body through this change. They don't know how to make that change a positive thing for them. So I do a lot of work. That's a lot of my work is on strictly supporting your body until you can get to the point where you can move back those uh, physical symptoms. So first thing I do with a woman is we deal with what her symptoms are. Is it weight gain? Is it hot flashes? Is it brain fog? I have a list of 88 symptoms. It's a lot. There are
88.
88 88, and they run from things like heart palpitations, which send women to the emergency room for
Yeah.
no good reason at all, to something called burning tongue syndrome, to panic attacks, to changes in their skin and changes in who they feel they are. So it's huge. So we deal with all of those things first, and then we deal with who they want to be. And
Mm.
yeah, it's a combination, but a lot of it has to do with starting with those symptoms. And um, if you want to type this address in,
Mhm.
menopause.guru/symptoms, they can go and get, whoever's listening can go and get a list of those 88 symptoms, actually 87, because I think I have to put one in as I was doing research this morning.
So menopause.guru.com/symptoms.
Menopause.guru
Oh,
slash
wow.
symptoms. The guru domain is actually sort of, when they started out those mega domains, I thought it was like really awesome. And that's where the menopause guru came from. Because that's what I do. I help women understand it. I help women control it. I help women take back their own lives. And that's where the title of my first book came from. I just
Okay,
want to be me again.
and let's talk about that book in a second. It looks like Molly has another question
Oh,
or comment for us.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You know what? I love what John said too. It's really important that we identify these symptoms, and she gives people those symptoms so they know what to look out for. It's kind of weird though, John. Wouldn't you agree that a lot of these symptoms that we're going through in midlife, a lot of these symptoms mimic our childhood when we were a young girl preparing to menstruate? There were a lot of girls that had panic attacks and feeling like they were coming out of their skin, and they were cranky and their moods were changing. It really sucks, but there's a direct parallel between becoming a woman and going into middle age and beyond. So I want you to touch on that too, because I think there's a lot of similarities there. And I love the fact that you want to educate girls like maybe in their 30s. It's like, this is not over. You had that, you're in your middle, and now you're on your way to menopause. Because they don't, you wouldn't you agree that
Mm.
they're very common and they're almost the same?
Mm. And thank you, Molly. Mood Swing Wines. Put in the link in the comments below so we can go and check out Mood Swing Wines, specifically created around creating a hot flash when you're drinking some wine. Thanks, Molly.
through major hormonal upheavals several times in their lives. They start when they go through puberty, then there's pregnancy, then there's post-pregnancy, postpartum, and then there's menopause. And they could do that pregnancy thing multiple times. And yes, every time we go through these major hormonal shifts, our bodies just like they go nuts. And sometimes if we're not supporting them with the right diet and exercise and stress management and thinking, then you wind up with this I think I'm stuck.
So,
Are you there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right.
Yeah.
It looked like everything shut down. And and as we go through that, those hormonal shifts happen, and so we have to support ourselves through that. And if you go to the doctor's going to order drugs. He's either going to order hormones or he's going to order antidepressants, and there's ridiculous side effects from both. And yet, when I take a woman on and in my client as my client, we work strictly naturally. I occasionally will suggest an herb, but mostly we deal with how we're eating, how we're exercising, how we're thinking, how we're de-stressing, and occasionally what supplements we need because our American diet is so messed up. So it's the idea that we can do this all without psychotropics or any of that stuff because it's all within us. It's all within us.
And Jeanne, the big thing that I'm hearing right now is that folks are coming out of a place where or not, they're transitioning out of a place where they're used to being the person who takes care of themselves last, right? We all read the thing, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your kid. But yet when you're right.
I bet you there is not one mother who has ever put on her own oxygen mask first.
Right. So then the idea of proactive self-care, not just self-care where you go into the bathtub and drink a glass of wine, but really taking care of yourself and doing it with the earth's best, right? Right. Being proactive about it is one of those shifts in transition, because I'm also picking up that this is not just a transition. This is a place where someone is mourning a part of their life that is shifting. They're going through physical things, and then they're becoming more aware of really full potential now. And that really is a journey. It's like crossing from one bridge to another. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, it is a journey. And it starts, you may not even see it starting. You might not know what's happening to you. And it's just what it is. And that's why I help women through this transition. And that's why I have everything that I do is all around finding who you are. And I call my year-long, I call my entry program, Create Your Menopause Survival Plan, because a lot of women come to me really confused and really upset and really scared. And then we move into the longer term program I call Possibilities, because it's all about looking at who you are, what you did for the first X number of years of your life, and what do you want to do with the rest of your life.
I love that. Sort of the idea that they're coming in with the sense of urgency, right? Oh my gosh, shit has hit the fan. Yes. I need to talk to somebody, and like, it's not all working with my doctor. And then moving to a place of creationism,
right?
Almost, right? What an amazing pivot, right? And what an amazing way to experience freedom from the standpoint of, wow, I bet you've had people say, I bet you you've had, hold on one second. I bet you've had people say, my whole life I've thought a certain way, and I don't know if I've ever felt like I've started living until now. They've had to have said something like that to you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because that is some true form of freedom that they're experiencing.
Exactly. Okay. I am was not the person I was 20 years ago. Uh, the person I am now is more adventurous, more interested in fun. When I go to see my grandbaby, we go out and do fun stuff. I take him hiking in the woods, and I can't wait to take him kayaking and climbing and all kinds of things that I am doing now as a 60-year-old woman, 62-year-old woman, and never thought about doing as a 35-year-old woman. So I'm grateful that our health system allows me to be this healthy. I'm grateful for every piece of my life up till now. And I'm grateful for all those experiences that have made me who I am and allowed me to decide what it is I want to be.
Absolutely love it.
Warning, my phone is starting to blink red, so if I lose you, that's what happened.
If you drop, we might have to have Molly McCarthy come back on and get all dirty up in here. But I do want to.
Moodswing wines in my refrigerator right now,
and that's some good juice, baby. That's all I gotta say. That's some good juice, and I'm ready to start working with that company on Menopause the musical and Moodswing wines for men. So maybe like a nice Jack Daniel's bourbon that we can have. We'll call it Stiff Jack, since everybody's talking about Viagra up in here. Can have a stiff Jack as I enter menopause. But I wanted to thank you. Molly's like here doing this in the backstage right now. What happens when we go to menopause.guru/SER? Is that the science of eating right? Is that what SER stands for?
That's called the Science of Eating Right for Menopause. It's a 6-class master class. They about 20-minute videos in each one. And I talk about the specific pieces of food interactions with you that I know about. So it's giving you a lot of science. So if you're not a science geek, then just email me, Jeanne, Jeanne, at menopause.guru, and tell me that you'd like that information in a little less depth. I have this persona that I call my inner science geek, and it's the one that goes out and says, "Oh, wow, that's how that works. That's really cool." And then I have to tell somebody about it. So
I love it.
In my masterclass, I've actually gone through and put a lot of that science in there, and it's really good stuff. But it can be a little intimidating for people.
And this is free. This is free for the download to gift it to us. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Molly. Why the hell not? Let's bring you up for any final comments. You've been backstage supporting her the whole time. What do you got to say, Molly? You're in the group.
Oh gosh, I just had to come on because I love her so much. It was an instant connection when we met, and we're like two women on a mission, and I just love everything that she offers, because the clinical part and the diet and exercise part, she's just got nailed down, and it's just so good that she has a voice for women. And that menopause is not that silent passage. I mean, we can make light of it, and we can have fun, and we can celebrate it. One point that I loved is that she made is that she's vivacious. I mean, at 62 years old, she's doing things that she never would have done in her 30s. And I think we just kind of get caught up in that whole, like, all the things that we think we know we're supposed to do in our 30s, that we kind of follow that little rabbit trail, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get married. We're supposed to have babies. We're supposed to do this by certain timelines and deadlines, and taking those deadlines and those timelines away because we have more time to do it now. that should be something we should be practicing in life all the time. Like from the moment we're conceived, it should become that adventure, not following somebody else's pattern or what we're supposed to do. And I love that she's going out there doing it like I'm doing it, like so many women that we are speaking to, encouraging them to do that. And it goes for men too. I love it. I just love it. You're just awesome. Mwah.
And I love it too. I've heard enough of you, Mollie. I'll see you soon, and I love you. And thank
I
you
love
always
you
for the
too. You
socks. Okay. So, Jeanne, there's really this movement around things going on right now. And I wanted to thank you for being one of the leaders in the movement. I wanted to thank you for shedding light on things that people will oftentimes put a stigma on, and really use it as a point of empowerment. Yep, roll those eyes because you got a lot more work to do, Mama.
I know. Let me tell you one quick story before we go. Hopefully, I won't run out of power. But last year, I applied for a TEDx Women, which is specifically focused on women's topics. And I talked to the person. She said, I love your idea. I think it's important that we talk about it, but could you not use the word menopause? That's what we're up against.
We got some work. We got some work.
I cut off the conversation. It was like, no, I can't not talk about menopause because that's what it is.
Well, guess what? There is a golden mic now coming down from your ceiling, Jeanne. And that golden mic, that golden mic translates into every language all across the world. And if you so feel like it, you can say the word menopause and it will be translated all across the world. The golden mic the golden mic. Now here the thing is that this golden mic does translate across the world, and you've got it for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Everyone is listening, Jeanne. What is it that you have to say? So your golden mic is live now.
You are an amazing person. You have done some amazing things in your life, woman. You're fabulous. You may have raised children. You may have had pets. You may have had a great job and a great career. And things are changing. But it doesn't have to be a negative. This can be the greatest gift of all. This can be the gift of yourself from yourself. You can go forward into your life and do all of those things that you put aside for other reasons and important reasons. And I would never, ever, ever let you think that it was a bad thing that you did, whatever your choices were. Now you have the time and the place to make new choices. If your body is getting in your way, come talk with me. We can make it different. We can create your menopause survival plan. Or if you don't need a survival plan, then a thriving plan. And then we can move you forward into wherever you want to be. I can't believe that we as humans weren't given this gift to throw it away. And I think that we as women can be amazing force for change and for positivity in the world. And that starts with supporting ourselves. It starts with being positively selfish in a positive way. I have a Facebook page, Menopause Guru. Come join me. Talk about what's going on with you, what you need to tell me, what you need to know, what you need to ask.
All right. Jeanne Andrus, I'm going to bring up Mollie too. Mollie's clapping right now. I want all of you three to be up here. I want y'all to hold that golden mic, all three of you. And I want you to slam that golden mic down because you just dropped it like it's hot. This has been episode 70, Golden Mic Live. If you've liked this episode, if you've loved this episode, if you want some more of Jeanne. The contact information is in our show notes, but more importantly, she's starting a movement, and movement work is about activism, awareness, and you moving the message forward. Share this baby out. Social media for social good. My name is Marc Cordon. This has been Golden Mike 70. Tomorrow we have Olympic athlete Allison Wagner. She got a silver medal in the Olympics. Yeah, it's All-Star Week, Jeanne. And you are part of it, right? Silver medalist in
what sport?
In swimming. During the age of doping. So we are going to talk about what it was like to know that people were doped up and she was swimming against them and still stayed true to her integrity and her values and what she was trained to do. Amazing people, amazing stories, but this is the final question that I have for all of you watching. If you're feeling good, happy, and you're living life in your full purpose, what is your responsibility to changing your outside world and history for the better? This has been the Golden Mike. We're shutting off. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Jeanne.
Thank you, Marc.
Take care.
Bye.